So, here is a Myanmar and here India. So, India shares border with Myanmar. By the end of this session, you will be able to appreciate the role of youth and students in bringing democracy to the both countries, and you will be able to analyze the comparison of events in both the countries, that is Libya and Burma, and you will be able to differentiate between the democracy and dictatorship. Children, while learning about this lesson Myanmar, we will be comparing with our country India, and also we will be comparing with the previous country we have learnt, that is Libya. Okay, let me introduce this country. Burma is also a colony of British like India. India was also a colony for Britishers. In the same way, Myanmar was also a colony for Britishers. So, Burma like India was a colony of British. And this country, Myanmar, is a major supplier of timber and agricultural crop like rice, and in this country we can get the mineral that is tin. Children, for what purpose this mineral is used? Do you know? Okay. This mineral is used as an alloy, mixing with other minerals, like for example, many our household things were made in combination of this mineral. For example, it is combined with the steel and make so many our kitchenware. So, like steel glasses or plates like that. For making these things, this mineral is used. And Myanmar is famous for precious stones like rubies and sapphires. Rubies are the reddish or pinkish stone which is used for making jewelries, and sapphire is a blue color stone. Children, as I already told you, we will be comparing this country with our country. So, when did we got independence? Yes, in 1947. So, just after 5 months of Indian independence, Burma also got independence, that is free from British as a colony. So, Burma too became independent 5 months after Indian independence. And this country Burma too, like India, consisted of large number of small states and ethnic linguistic regions. Children, in your previous classes you have already studied about Indian independent movement. Yes. So, before attaining independence, India was also consisting of different princely states. Yes. So, in the same way, here Burma was also having ethnic linguistic regions. Ethnic means the group of people having common culture and traditions and languages. So, Myanmar, that is Burma, in 1947, Aung San, a leader of the Burman ethnic group who had led the country to independence. In attaining independence for this country, this person Aung San, a leader of this tribal group, played a prominent role in attaining independence, and other major leaders of ethnic groups negotiated for the rights and democracy. But soon he was assassinated. Aung San was assassinated. What is the meaning of assassination, children? You might have already heard this name many times. Assassination means murder with political reasons. So, this person was assassinated. Soon after the death of Aung San, the Burmese military began its rule, the ethnic states by force. So, the military people started ruling this country or this region. Soon after, the Burmese military began its rule the ethnic states by force. This did not like by the ethnic groups. They took up arms. Arms means what, children? Weapons. They started having weapons to protect their states, demanding for autonomy. Autonomy means governing itself independently, and rights and for democracy. So they wanted to rule for themselves, not under the military ruling. So there was an ethnic strife. The meaning of strife is no agreement. There was disagreement among the ethnic groups. So there was no harmony. There is no peace among these tribal groups. So this ethnic strife became complex in 1962, and the elected government was overthrown by a coup, and Army General 𝗍𝗏 took charge of the country. The elected government was overthrown. Now who is ruling Burma? The military rulers. That means dictatorship. They are not the elected rulers just as in democracy. Now there is dictatorial rule in Burma. You can see the picture of General 𝗍𝗏. Now let us see what are the measures taken by this military government. General 𝗍𝗏 measures. This government tried to nationalize all industries and mineral resources. The meaning of nationalization means having authority by the government. All the mineral resources or the industries now are under the authority of government's ownership. So there are no individual owners. All are under the government. In this government, free public health and education system was also established. Did you remember even in Libya also the government, the army government, there also army people rule the country. They also introduced free medical camps and free education to all the people. In the same way, here also in Burma, they adopted these methods. In between 1962 and 65, important laws against landlords and usury were adopted. So we have already learnt about landlordism. Under landlordism, the peasants and the small farmers, they suffered a lot under the zamindars or the landlords. These landlords used to collect a heavy amount of tax, and that too there was no proper rate of interest. Unlawful rate of interest was taxes were collected. So against all these things, in order to help the poor people, this government made new laws. Now let us see the rule of army generals in Myanmar, the impact of this government. Now all the major resources of the country were in the hands of army generals. Just now as we came to know that this government nationalized all the industries and the mineral resources. That means now all these are in the hands of military government. But unlike Libya, Burma did not see any development. Children, did you notice that the same measures were taken in Libya also by the military government, but Libya achieved a greater achievement and development in that country? Yes, accused of misuse of human rights, accused of misuse of human rights and forced labor, and the peasants, and they used to sell their children even to the army. So that kind of miserable conditions were there in Burma. Now let us see. All the people started protest against the military rule. The students usually took the lead in staging protest against the military rule. Especially the educated people, the students, now they came to know the importance of democracy and they started rebelling against the military government. But as such, all these protests were suppressed by the army. Suppression means they were put down or shut down by force. So the government used military people to suppress all these protests. In 1988, a major protest broke out and was brutally suppressed by killing thousands of people. A new military council took over the power, promising elections. So after all these rebellion and protest against the government, there was a small change. A new military council now formed to rule the country, promising that they will conduct the elections. And it was around this time that Aung San Suu Kyi began to fight for reforms in Burma. This woman, Aung San Suu Kyi, she was a daughter of Aung San. Just now in the starting we learned that the person who played a key role bringing independence to Burma, Aung San. So his daughter was Suu Kyi, and she protested for the establishment of democracy in Burma. So after this, there was an international pressure on this country to bring back the democracy in the country. So all the countries in the world, they started bringing pressure on this military government to conduct the elections and bring democracy. So as a result of that, the rulers declared elections in 1900. So in these elections, a new political party, that is National League for Democracy, NLD, led by Suu Kyi, won majority. 80% of the elections were gained by this party, and though she was in prison. That means during protest time, all the protesters were arrested and kept in prison. So Aung San Suu Kyi, she played a great role in the protest. She was also arrested and she was in the prison. From prison itself, she contested for elections and her party gained the majority seats. Now what should happen, children? She should form the government and rule the country. But it did not happen. Why? Because military refused to hand over the power and even to release Suu Kyi. Aung San Suu Kyi, she was in arrest, that is she was in house arrest, prison, but they did not relieve her and even they did not accept her to form the government. They refused to give the authority, and she was kept under house arrest, not even able to attend the funeral of her husband. So she was in house arrest, and even when her husband died also, she was not allowed to come out and attend the burial program, or that is the funeral, and even she was not allowed to meet her two sons. With this, later there was more worldwide pressure on this country. Now all the countries stopped having trade relations with Burma. There was no imports or exports. The countries refused to have trade with Burma. With this, there is a greater effect on country's economy, especially on common people. So with this, the government started making some changes. Let us see what are the changes in Burma. Changes in Burma. From 2008, this government conducted a referendum. The meaning of referendum is to take the voters' views. That means their expression, what are their opinion, to take the opinions of the voters. And they took referendum to get establishing democracy and changing the country's name as Republic of Democracy. So the people, they wanted to have their country as a democratic and republic. You know the meaning of republic is the rulers should be from different categories, not from the hereditary, like if the king is ruling, later his son will become the ruler, again his son will become the ruler. So that is not republic. So republic means the ruler will be from the people and democracy means the government of the rulers elected by the people. So, Burma people wanted Republic of Democracy. So, with this, elections were held in 2010 under the observation of UN. What is UN, children? United Nations Organization. Yes, even in Libya case also we learnt about UNO, in United Nations Organization. So, this United Nations Organization interfered in this country's situation. Now, under the observation of UN, elections were conducted. But, however, 𝗬𝗎 was barred from contesting. She was not allowed, Aung San Suu Kyi was not allowed to contest in the elections, in these elections, and not even she was released from the house arrest. After the elections only she was released. As a result of that, Union Solidarity and Development Party won most of the seats. This is another party that won the majority, and Thein Sein became the president of this country. Nobel Prize acceptance. For all the efforts done by Aung San Suu Kyi, she was awarded with Nobel Prize. Suu Kyi was awarded Nobel Prize for Peace in 1991 while she was still under house arrest. She accepted this Nobel Prize not by her name itself. She said that she is accepting this Nobel Prize on behalf of all the people in Burma. Children, till now we have seen the two countries which struggle for democracy, Libya and Myanmar. Two different situations for achieving democracy. Now let us see some features of democracy and dictatorship. In Libya, Gaddafi government and the RCC worked for welfare state. Yes, the Gaddafi government and RCC, they both brought many welfare measures for the people. They have given free education to all the people, free medical aid to them, and there were many other welfare programs done for the people. Even in Burma also, junta, that means group of military officers, began with some welfare measures and land reforms, but went on only to increase the control of army. Like in Libya, Burma also done many welfare measures, but later they mainly concentrated in increasing their army. So, both these countries ruled by people who got their support from army. So, this is a similarity between the two countries. Both the countries ruled by army people. They did not allow free and fair elections. In both the countries, they did not allow the elections. Both did not allow elected representatives to form the government. In both the countries, people wanted free and fair elections, freedom to express their views, and to organize and to protest. Both these countries, Libya and Burma, they have attained independence, but they could not form a stable democratic government. See, in Burma, it began with democratic system but slipped into army rule, whereas Libya moved from monarchy and slipped into army rule. However, both the countries did not have favorable conditions for a democracy to flourish. So, it was a very difficult for them to have a political settlement, a stable democratic political system. Let us see the march of democracy. Birth of modern democracy in 17th century in England. Even in your previous classes you have learnt about different revolutions that wanted or protested for the democracy. Gradual transformation of political systems, democratic ideals across the world conform to democratic ideals. In this process, we can take the example of England Revolution and even American Revolution. They had a great revolutions to form a stable democratic system. Industrialization and colonization. Industrialization and colonialism created conditions favored democratic ideas. After Industrial Revolution and colonization, that the race for democratic ideals. So people who suffered under colonialism, they wanted to be free from other countries' rule, and they want to have the democratic ideals like equality, fraternity, justice and liberty. During these days, that is during this time, that means on the march of democracy, the later 19th century and 20th century, educated middle class inspired by these democratic ideals. By the time of 19th and 18th century, educated people were increased. They learnt and they observed in other countries how successfully the countries are running the democratic governments. So this is also an important incident happened in this period. In the 20th century, democracy became a slogan of anti-colonial struggles in Asia and Africa. So by 20th century, most of the countries in the world wanted to attain democratic governments rather than dictatorship or monarchy or any other colonial rule. For example, we can take in Asia, India and Sri Lanka and even South Africa established a stable democratic political system. But whereas countries like Burma and Pakistan, they could not establish stable democracy. They established the dictatorship form of governments. Till now we have seen some features of democracy and dictatorship. Now let us see the different other forms of political systems. Communist system. In this communist system, the communists, they believed in dictatorship of the proletariat. Proletariat means the working class. As such of this, such political system was emerged in USSR in 1917. Children, did you remember? You learnt about Russian Revolution. So this communist system established in USSR in 1917 and China after 1949, Vietnam and Cuba after 1960. These countries built socialist economies in which all the factories are owned by the government, and the education, health and employment and even equality was provided for all in the country. So after 1991, USSR, United Soviet Socialistic Republic, broke out and people demanded for freedom and democracy like USA. As a result of that, following this, many other European countries ended the communist rule in their countries and established parliamentary democracies. So previously USSR, this is all USSR, later it was divided, broke up into independent democratic countries. Children, let us conclude this lesson. It is increasingly becoming clear to the people that democracy which respects the freedom and rights of all people may be the best way to solve some of the complex problems the countries face. So with this we can understand, children, among different kinds of political systems, whether it is a dictatorship or communist or socialist or any other monarchy type of government, people wanted their country to be a democratic country. Today, a new kind of democracy is being forged across the world, in which even the poorest and most vulnerable people will have a voice. That means in democracy, now even the form of democracy is also came up with new ideals now. Even in a country, the poor and weak section of the people can also raise their voice and ask or demand on government for their demands, and it will be able to influence policies and ensure justice and peace for all. So this is new kind of democracy arising in the 20th century. With this we have come to an end of this chapter, children. Hope you all understood, and here are some important questions for you. Okay children, just observe these maps. You can see the democratic governments in 1900 to 1950. Here are the countries which are shown in red color are the democratic governments in 1900. So by 1900 only these countries are democratic countries, remaining all these white color they are non-democratic governments. So by 1900 very few countries attained democracy. Now observe another map. Here you can see most of the countries are in yellow color. So what is that represent? Democratic governments in 2011. So by 2011 all these countries which are shown in yellow color are the democratic governments. So most of the countries achieved democracy now, and very few countries are shown in red color. So what does this represent? These are the countries in transition. That means they are attempting to transform to democratic governments. Just you can see this is Myanmar here and Libya. So these countries trying to establish democracy in their countries, and very few countries which are shown in white color were the non-democratic countries. So on the basis of these maps, children identify at least 3 countries. So on the basis of these maps, children identify up to 3 countries which were democratic. Okay children, let us go to the another question. What are the similarities of events do you find in the description of events in Libya and Burma? We have learnt about these 2 countries, keeping in your mind the leadership of the country and the nature of the struggle and process of transition. And how did students and youth play an important role in bringing democracy to both the Libya and Burma? Next question children. What is the difference between democracy and dictatorship? And what is a new kind of democracy? That's all for today's session children. Hope you all understood well. For better understandings of the concept, please solve the worksheets given for you, and please visit the official site of SCERT. Thank you children.
ఆహారం పాడవకుండా ఉంచడం ఆహార పరీక్ష